Good morning, folks. Welcome again to the Nashville LyftZone. I am your host, DJ Rockwell, the #1 Lyft driver in Nashville, Tennessee. And today's video is specifically for the newbies, the new Lyft drivers, new Uber drivers. These are some tips to help you get off to a good start and help you make money, pretty much no matter what market that you are in. So let's go ahead and get started. Tip number 1. Stay away from the other drivers. Now on both Uber and Lyft, you have a passenger app. On Uber, it's two different apps. There's a driver app and a passenger app. With Lyft, it's the same app. You just you can switch back and forth between them. But if you're driving around, you're not getting any ride requests, or you're parked somewhere and you're not getting any ride requests. If you're on Lyft, log out of the driver mode or turn driver mode off and switch over to the passenger app. And what that does is allows you to see where the other drivers are around you. I think it'll show you the closest 10 cars to wherever you put the pin. So if you're parked somewhere and you load that up and there's a whole bunch of cars right around you, get out of there. Go somewhere else and move that pin around to see, are there drivers up here? Are there some over here? Are there some down here? Find that little sweet spot that's kind of in between all those, because if you're in an area where there's a whole bunch of drivers, you're all fighting for the same scraps. And you know what happens to the runt of the litter? The last dog at the bowl, he starves. So we don't want to starve. So use the passenger app, to figure out where the other drivers are, and if you're not getting any requests, then just move out of that area. A mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. There's usually going to be an area somewhere where there really aren't that many drivers. There may be drivers all around that area, but if you can get right in the middle of all of those, then you're covering a much wider area for ride requests than if you are in a clump together with a whole bunch of other drivers in a specific area. So tip number 1, use the passenger app to locate the other drivers and get away from them. You're going to be a lot more likely to get a ride request if you stay away from them. Tip number 2, don't chase the surge. Now in Nashville here, the surge is, sorry about that, the surge kind of pops up in random places sometimes, and you may be on this side of town and it starts surging over on this side of town, or you're on this side of town and it starts surging over here. Don't be bouncing back and forth between those trying to get that surge, because on Lyft at least, what happens is when an area lights up in that prime time area, there's not enough drivers in that area, and there's too many people that just opened up their Lyft app. So you may have 10, 20 people, let's say, that just opened their Lyft app. You may only have 1 or 2 drivers in that immediate area. So in order to get more drivers into that area so the passengers aren't waiting, Lyft will light that area up in a prime time, and that attracts moths to a flame. So if you're a couple miles away from where that prime time surge area is, by the time you get there and make it through the traffic lights and stop signs to get to that area, pretty much every other driver that's in that immediate vicinity has already gotten there, picked up the passengers, and now the prime time rates are gone. It disappears. And if you do that, it's usually going to be right as you're getting right into that little area. And a lot of times what's going to happen is an area is going to light up, it may be 25%, 50%, 75%, even 100%. Those I don't really pay attention to unless it drops right on top of me, or I'm right next to an area that's starting to go into prime time. But a lot of times what's going to happen is all these other drivers, they're just going to take off like bats out of hell for that area. Because I was in downtown Nashville one night, and there was an area a couple miles outside of downtown. It's a popular little bar district, and that area lit up in I can't remember, it was like 100%, I think, maybe. And every single driver in downtown took off. They're flying towards that area, and they weren't, they weren't taking their time either. I mean, they were, hauling ass out of there to get into that surge area. I didn't do that. I sat exactly where I was and ended up getting like 5 back-to-back real quick ride requests, because now I'm the only driver in downtown. There's no other Lyft drivers in downtown. So, and this was right about the bar closing time, so it's during the bar rush. So a whole bunch of people just left the Golden Goose and took off for the the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And what happens when you go chasing that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? It's never there when you get to it. But I stayed put. I made money, that night, and they weren't really long fares. They were just kind of running down the road, running people back to their hotels. But if I'd gone after that surge, I probably wouldn't have gotten a single ride. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, know your events. Know the events that are going on in your city. Concerts, sporting events, and a lot of these are real easy to find out. Like, use Nashville as an example. Visit Nashville.com or something like that. Visit, enter your city name here.com or something to that effect. Another great place to find out what events are going on is StubHub, VividSeats.com, or Ticketmaster, or all of the above. Which is a good idea to actually have an app, which each one of those has apps that you can download to your phone for free, and you can pull that up when you're coming into work, when you're getting ready to go to work, or when you're parked somewhere, and check around, see what the events are that are going on in town that night or that day. And I say it's a good idea to have, say, like all 3 of them. There are some others out there. There's secondary ticket sales sites, but those 3 in particular, because not every event is going to be listed necessarily on all 3. There might be, one that's only listed on these 2 and not on this one, or on this one and not these 2. So it's a good idea to check all of those, and you can do that real quick. It only takes a couple seconds just to load the app up, quickly scroll down to what's going on today. Then you're going to know, okay, well, we got Carrie Underwood is playing over here. She's doing a 5 o'clock show and a 9 o'clock show. There's another concert. Say, I'm pulling these names out of the top of my head. Let's say Keith Urban is playing downtown at an arena at 7 o'clock. There might be something going on at an amphitheater. So check all those and know your events. And one of the biggest reason you want to know that what events are going on in your city is that typically when these concerts, sporting events start letting out and the show's over or the game is over or whatever it is, that area around that stadium or concert venue is going to light up in prime time. So that's one time that you can actually predict where prime time is going to happen, because it's almost guaranteed. NFL football season's about to start. Here in Nashville, we have the Tennessee Titans. That's like a 80,000 seat stadium. And there's going to be a ton of people that took a Lyft or Uber to that. Now, you're not going to get prime time rates or surge rates taking people to the game or to the concert. But when those concerts let out and those sporting events let out, that's usually some big money right there that you can cash in on real quick. So tip number 3, know your events. Tip number 4, double check with your personal insurance, whoever you have insurance with, and make sure that they cover rideshare drivers or commercial. You're a commercial driver essentially, so you need a commercial insurance policy. There are several insurance companies out there that specifically offer ride-sharing insurance for Lyft and Uber drivers. That's what I have right now. It is with Erie, that is spelled E-R-I-E, Erie Insurance. And in the event of an accident, whether I have passengers in the car or not, my personal policy is in full effect the whole time. And it actually costs, the rideshare insurance is actually costing me less than the insurance policy that I used to have, which was with State Farm. And State Farm doesn't cover any kind of commercial policy at all. But another thing is you want to check in your specific city and state, because Erie Insurance, for example, offers rideshare insurance here in Tennessee. They don't offer that same kind of rideshare insurance coverage in every state. So a real quick way is just click on, do a Google search, rideshare insurance, carriers, company, whatever, and find out if there are other options available to you for ride-sharing insurance. Because the last thing you want to do is get into an accident or some kind of fender bender, and you're not on a ride, so Lyft's insurance ain't going to cover you, Uber's insurance ain't going to cover you. And if your insurance company doesn't offer coverage to rideshare drivers, then guess who's going to be hung out to dry to pay for whatever damages are done to your car and their car, plus any medical bills if it's a bad wreck? That's going to be you. Sorry, the camera, I'm used to the lens being over here, now it's over here. But yeah, you're going to be hung out to dry. And you're going to be on the hook for all that money. So that is extremely important. Make sure that you have the proper insurance coverage for doing ride sharing. And that brings us to number 5. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we got 5. Rockstar keeping GTA alive. But anyway, tip number 5 right here for new Uber and Lyft drivers is don't get discouraged. Because you start out, you're not going to know where the hot spots are. I mean, if you've lived in the city a long time, you might already know, where prime locations are, or at least where a couple of them are. But when you're starting out on your first day, your first week, maybe even your first month, this all depends on you. You may not make the kind of money that you think you're going to be making, because they say 35, 40, $50 an hour. That's not guaranteed. And yes, you're going to have hours where you make that kind of money, but you're also going to have hours where that just suck complete balls, and you're not making, you're getting one ride and it's a $5 ride, which means you only get like $4 off of that. But the more that you do this, and the more that you learn your area and where those hot spots are, the better you're going to be at being able to get rides. I don't have a lot of problems getting rides, because I know where pretty much all the major hot spots are for bar pickups. If it's early evening, I kind of circle around neighborhoods looking for people going into town for the evening. But the longer you do this, oh, those guys are having a bad day. There's a couple state troopers had somebody pulled over there on the other side. But the longer you do this, the more you're going to learn the area, know where those hot spots are, and you're going to be able to better predict even some surge rates, surge times, prime time times. You're going to be able to predict where those are and where those people are that are going to be needing rides. So it's a good idea, and this can be used in conjunction with the passenger app to outsmart your competition, which your competition is other Lyft and Uber drivers. And taxis too, but we're not talking about those dinosaurs. But yeah, don't get discouraged if you have a bad day your first day. I was out my first day, I worked like 14, 15 hours and only made like $100. So that ain't, that's not really that great. In fact, that's just downright shitty. On my second night, I did a little bit better. It was, I think, like $200. I made $200 on it, and then that was a Saturday night. The first night was a Friday night. But I didn't know the area at all. I knew nothing about Nashville or the area that I was driving in. I didn't know where anything was, where any hot spots are. I didn't know where bars were. I was relying solely on the GPS to get me around, and pretty much just focused on downtown, because downtown's the only place that I knew where it was. But the more you do this, the more rides you take, the more of the city that you will explore, and you get paid to explore it. And you will learn where those hot spots are. You're going to be a much better driver in the long run if you stick with it. Don't get discouraged, because the longer you do this, the better you're going to be able to get at it. And especially with all the new drivers. I mean, we got a ton of new drivers here in Nashville right now. They're all over the place, but they're all sticking to, main areas. They're not, they're not thinking clearly, because they may not know where all these areas and hot spots are, but I do. So I kind of look at, see where they are, and if there's a whole bunch of cars in this area, I get out of there. I go somewhere else. I move around, and you will learn to do that too. And it just comes with time. That's all it takes is time. And after about a month of doing this, let's say, you're going to be getting pretty good at this. I'm right at the 2-month mark now, and I know this city like the back of my hand. I drop somebody off somewhere. I mean, there are in Nashville, there's little hot spots all over the city. So wherever I drop somebody off, I'm pretty close to one of those hot spots. And when I drop them off, that's where I head to. Sometimes I get a ride request before I get there. Sometimes I make it all the way there and sit there for 5 minutes, but then I get another ride request because I know where to go. So anyway, those are my top 5 tips for beginning/new drivers for Lyft and Uber. And if you follow those 5 tips, you should be able to get off to a pretty good start in this business. Just don't get discouraged. Make sure you got the right insurance. Stay away from the other drivers. Don't chase the prime time, and know your events. Oh, and one last thing for all you noob drivers out there, or folks that are new to this channel, if you go down in the description, you will find links to some of my favorite rideshare channels. Uberman, LyftZone, the Rideshare Guy, Jermaine Ellis, and some others. And all these channels are going to have a lot of great information. They've been around a lot longer. They're ones that I've been watching that I learned a lot about on, to help me get off to a fast start. So be sure to check out those channels, and do yourself a favor, check out those channels, because there's a wealth of information in all of those videos that all of them have. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So y'all have a great day. I will catch you again next time in the Nashville Lyft Zone. And don't you go changing.